Single mom finds a lost wallet mid-flight. The billionaire beside her never expected it. The autumn morning over Portland was gray and restless when Amelia Hart tightened her grip on her worn canvas bag and checked the boarding pass again. She had never flown before. The airport smelled of coffee and rain, and the sound of rolling suitcases echoed like steady heartbeats around her. Her daughter Zoe, 6 years old and small for her age, clung to her mother's hand with both of hers, eyes wide beneath the pink hoodie she loved. This flight to Seattle wasn't a vacation. It was a chance, maybe the only one left, for Amelia to change their lives. She had been invited to a walk-in recruitment event for Sky North Airlines, which was looking for local seamstresses to help make prototype uniforms for their new environmental initiative. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, respectable work. If she could prove herself, she might finally escape the unstable shifts and late nights at the corner tailor shop that barely paid the rent. Their seats were near the middle of the plane. Zoe pressed her face to the small oval window, fascinated by the ground crew waving orange batons. Amelia smiled faintly, though her stomach felt hollow. She placed her bag under the seat, counting her remaining money again. $64, folded carefully in an envelope. Just enough for a night at a cheap hostel and a meal for Zoe. Nothing could go wrong. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Let me help with that." The man next to her, tall, composed, maybe in his late 30s, reached up to lift his black carry-on into the overhead compartment. His tone was calm but kind. Amelia thanked him quietly and took her seat. He wore a simple gray sweater and dark jeans, and though there was nothing flashy about him, there was something controlled, almost precise in the way he moved. "First flight?" he asked. She nodded. "You'll be fine. The view makes up for everything." He smiled before slipping on his noise-canceling headphones. His name, printed on the boarding pass she glimpsed by accident, was Ethan Vale. As passengers settled, the air filled with the rustle of seatbelts clicking and the faint whine of the engines warming up. Zoe hummed softly, hugging her stuffed rabbit, while Amelia tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Then she noticed something on the floor, half hidden beneath the seat in front of her. It was a leather wallet, brown, slightly worn at the edges. She hesitated, then bent down and picked it up. It felt heavy, solid. Inside, she glimpsed crisp $100 bills, a couple of credit cards, and a small photograph of a smiling boy with messy dark hair. She looked around quickly. No one seemed to have dropped anything. Her pulse quickened. She closed the wallet and placed it on her lap. A voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone has found a brown leather wallet, please alert a flight attendant. The owner has reported it missing." Amelia froze. Her mind raced. $64 wasn't enough for food and a hotel. That wallet could fix everything, just for a while. The plane began to taxi, and the vibration beneath her feet seemed to echo the tremor inside her chest. She turned the wallet over in her hands, feeling its smooth surface. Zoe leaned against her arm. "Mommy, what's that?" Amelia forced a small smile. "Just something someone dropped, sweetheart." The little girl blinked up at her, innocent and trusting. Guilt prickled in Amelia's throat. She tucked the wallet inside her bag as the plane's nose lifted from the ground. Out the window, the world tilted, city becoming patchwork, clouds swallowing everything. The engines steadied to a deep hum. Amelia's heart didn't. She kept one hand over her bag as if it could hide what she was thinking. She imagined a man somewhere on the plane, maybe desperate, patting his pockets. She imagined what that money could do. Pay the landlord who had warned her last week, "One more late payment and you're out." Buy Zoe a proper winter coat instead of the thrift store one with a broken zipper. Buy medicine for the cough that never went away. But then she saw the photograph again in her mind. The boy's easy smile, and her thoughts turned. What if that was the owner's child? What if someone else took her own wallet and kept the picture of Zoe tucked inside, like a piece of her life erased? The thought made her chest tighten. The seatbelt sign chimed off, and a flight attendant walked by asking if anyone had found the missing wallet. Amelia's throat went dry. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Across the aisle, Ethan glanced her way, eyes calm but observant. He had probably noticed something when she bent down earlier. She couldn't tell. Zoe yawned and rested her head on Amelia's arm. "Mommy, when we land, can we get pancakes?" she mumbled sleepily. Amelia brushed a hand through her daughter's hair, whispering, "We'll see." Her voice trembled. Outside the window, the sky was endless and blindingly white. Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the wallet against her leg, the thrum of the engines beneath her feet, and the heaviness of her own thoughts. She didn't know yet what she would do, but she knew one thing for certain. The decision she made before this plane touched the ground could change everything. The hum of the engines deepened as the plane climbed higher, cutting through thick clouds that swallowed every bit of light. Amelia pressed her palm against the armrest, trying to steady herself. The seatbelt sign flashed on again, and the captain's calm voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some turbulence. Please remain seated." A faint gasp rippled through the cabin. Zoe clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Is the plane okay, Mommy?" she whispered. "It's okay, sweetheart," Amelia said softly, though her own voice trembled. "Just a few bumps." The plane jolted suddenly, silverware clattering on trays, a child crying somewhere in the back. Amelia's heart pounded, but her hand wasn't on the armrest anymore. It was over her bag. The leather wallet inside pressed against her leg like a secret she couldn't escape. She pulled the zipper slightly open and stared at it again. In the dim cabin light, it seemed almost to breathe. Her mind was a storm of voices. You could keep it. No one saw. It's only fair. Life's been cruel enough. Then another voice cut through, quieter but sharper. What if that man out there is panicking because of you? What if that photo is all he has left of his child? Amelia shut her eyes, breathing through the pressure in her chest. She thought of her landlord's warning, of unpaid bills stacked on the kitchen counter, of Zoe's cough that hadn't gone away for weeks. She thought of every time she had gone to bed hungry, so her daughter could eat. The money in that wallet could fix everything, for now. A small tremor shook the plane again, and Zoe whimpered. Amelia turned to her, brushing a curl away from her forehead. "Look at me, honey. We're fine. We're safe." Zoe nodded, trusting her completely. That trust hit Amelia harder than the turbulence ever could. Her daughter believed every word she said, every choice she made. If she chose wrong today, that belief would mean nothing. The seatbelt sign stayed on, but the plane steadied for a moment. Amelia unzipped her bag fully, pulled the wallet out, and turned it over in her hands. The photograph of the boy caught her eye again. Dark hair, bright grin, holding a model airplane. He couldn't have been older than Zoe. A warmth bloomed in her chest, painful and pure. She whispered, "He looks just like you when you smile." Zoe peeked through half-lidded eyes. "Who?" "Just someone's little boy," Amelia murmured. Overhead, the intercom crackled. The same flight attendant's voice came through, polite but more urgent this time. "Ladies and gentlemen, the owner of a brown leather wallet is still hoping someone has found it. Please let us know if you have any information." Amelia's throat tightened. She stared at the wallet, at her reflection faintly mirrored on its polished surface. It was as if it were asking her what kind of person she wanted to be. She closed her eyes. Images flashed. Zoe's tiny hands helping her fold laundry. Her grandmother's voice saying, "Honesty isn't something you practice when it's easy, dear. It's something you keep when no one's watching." Amelia swallowed hard. She leaned down toward Zoe and kissed her forehead. "I'll be right back, honey," she whispered. Zoe nodded sleepily. Amelia unclipped her seatbelt, ignoring the mild tremor still running through the cabin, and stood. A few passengers glanced at her as she made her way down the narrow aisle. Her knees felt weak, but she didn't stop. She reached the flight attendant's station near the galley, where 2 attendants were checking service carts. Her voice came out small but clear. "Excuse me," she said. "I think I've found the wallet you were looking for." One of the attendants looked up in relief. "Oh, thank goodness, the gentleman has been very upset," Amelia handed it over. The attendant smiled warmly. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll make sure it's returned right away." For a moment, Amelia stood frozen. A rush of calm and guilt and strange lightness washed over her all at once. She nodded, then turned back toward her seat. As she walked, she caught Ethan Vale's eyes. He had removed his headphones and was watching her quietly. He didn't smile, but there was something in his expression, recognition, maybe respect, that made her look away quickly. She sat back down, heart still racing. Zoe opened her eyes halfway. "Mommy?" "Yes, sweetie. Did you give it back?" Amelia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Yes. Someone lost something important. We helped them find it." Zoe's lips curved into a sleepy grin. "You're nice, Mommy." That simple sentence pierced deeper than any praise could. Outside the window, the clouds began to thin, and sunlight broke through like a promise. The captain announced that the turbulence had passed, and the plane would soon begin its descent. Amelia leaned back in her seat, exhausted but strangely lighter. For the first time in a long while, she felt proud. Not for surviving, but for choosing right. She didn't notice Ethan still watching her from the next seat, studying the woman who had returned what she could have easily kept. He turned his gaze toward the clouds and thought, almost aloud, "Still a few people in this world who remember what integrity looks like." The sky outside glowed pale gold as the plane dipped lower. Zoe murmured in her sleep, "We're flying through sunshine now." Amelia brushed her daughter's hair and whispered, "Yes, baby, we are." When the plane finally touched down in Seattle, the passengers broke into tired applause. The turbulence had left everyone tense, and even Zoe clapped softly with relief. Amelia unbuckled their seatbelts, her hands still slightly trembling from the decision she had made. She felt both light and drained, like someone who had run for miles through a storm only to find herself standing in calm air. "You did good, Mommy," Zoe said sleepily as they waited to disembark. Amelia smiled faintly, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "We just did what was right, sweetheart." The little girl nodded, satisfied. Inside the terminal, the smell of coffee and jet fuel mixed with the hum of hundreds of voices. People hurried toward baggage claim, while announcements echoed from overhead speakers. Amelia guided Zoe through the crowd, searching for the sign that said "Exit." She wanted to find a quiet corner to rest before figuring out the bus to downtown. Her stomach ached from nerves and hunger. She was still thinking about what had happened when she saw a man standing near the information desk. An elderly gentleman in a pressed suit, his silver hair neatly combed, but his hands shaking slightly as he spoke with a flight attendant. "It's all right, sir," the attendant said kindly. "We have your wallet right here." The old man sighed in visible relief as the attendant handed it over. "Oh, thank heavens," he said. "My employer would have been so worried." Amelia slowed her steps. The word employer caught her attention. Before she could look away, a familiar voice spoke beside her. "I was wondering if I'd see you again." She turned. Ethan Vale stood a few feet away, his carry-on in one hand, the same calm expression on his face. The overhead light caught the faint flecks of silver at his temples. "Mr. Vale," she said quickly, unsure why she sounded nervous. Did you get your wallet back?" He nodded, his eyes steady on hers. "I did. You returned it to my assistant. He told me what happened." He paused, the hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You could have kept it. No one would have known." Amelia looked down at Zoe, who was now clutching her hand. "I would have known," she said quietly, "and so would she." Ethan followed her gaze to the little girl and gave a slow nod. "That's a good answer." He shifted his bag and added, "You helped an old man who was scared, and you returned something that wasn't yours. You'd be surprised how rare that is these days." Amelia flushed slightly. "I wasn't looking for credit." "I didn't think you were," he replied. His voice softened. "You just reminded me that trust still exists." The words hung there for a moment, simple but sincere. Around them, travelers rushed by, but the small space between them felt quiet. Zoe tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, can we eat now?" Her voice broke the silence and Ethan smiled. "There's a cafe near the lounge. Let me buy you both something. It's the least I can do." Amelia hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," he said, his tone gentle but certain. "Come on. It'll give me peace of mind." A few minutes later, they sat by the cafe window overlooking the rainy tarmac. Zoe ate her muffin in careful, slow bites, while Amelia sipped a cup of coffee she hadn't been able to afford for months. The warmth spread through her fingers. She watched Ethan as he checked his phone briefly, then turned it face down. "Do you live in Seattle?" he asked. "No," she said. "Portland. I'm here for a job interview tomorrow. Something small, just a sewing position for Sky North's uniform project." "That's not small," he said. "That's ambition." She laughed quietly. "It's survival." He leaned back, considering her words. Survival and ambition sometimes look the same. The difference is what comes after. His tone carried no arrogance, just thoughtfulness. Amelia didn't quite know how to reply. She looked out the window instead, where the rain streaked across the glass in thin lines of silver. Zoe hummed a tune to herself, blissfully unaware of the conversation's weight. When they finished eating, Ethan checked the departure board. "My connecting flight's canceled," he said, almost amused. "Looks like I'm stranded here for a few hours." "Ours too," Amelia admitted. "Maybe the weather doesn't want anyone leaving yet." He smiled. "Then let me at least help you find somewhere to wait. The main lounge is overcrowded, but there's a quieter area my company keeps for business travelers. You and Zoe can rest there until things clear up." Amelia hesitated again, her pride stirring. But Zoe yawned loudly beside her, rubbing her eyes. "Okay," Amelia said finally. "Thank you." Ethan gestured for them to follow. As they walked toward the private lounge, Zoe trotted ahead, skipping over the reflections of airport lights on the shiny floor. Ethan glanced sideways at Amelia. "You know," he said, "most people would have pocketed that wallet without a second thought." She shrugged. "Most people haven't been raising a 6-year-old who's always watching." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes, then said softly, "Maybe the world would be better if more people were." The automatic doors opened to reveal the quiet lounge beyond, filled with soft chairs and the smell of chocolate and coffee. For the first time in a long while, Amelia felt her shoulders relax. She didn't know that this unexpected detour, born from a moment of conscience, was about to change everything she thought she knew about kindness, trust, and the path her life could take. The lounge was tucked away behind a frosted glass wall at the far end of the terminal. Inside, the lighting was soft and golden, a sharp contrast to the chaos outside where stranded passengers argued and announcements blared over the speakers. The air smelled faintly of cocoa and fresh coffee. Amelia hesitated at the doorway, her fingers tightening around Zoe's hand. The plush carpets and wide armchairs made her feel out of place, like she had stepped into a world she didn't belong to. Ethan glanced back and smiled reassuringly. "It's just a waiting room," he said quietly, as if sensing her hesitation. "No one here is keeping score." Zoe's eyes widened as she spotted a table stacked with picture books and a small shelf of toys near the window. "Can I look?" she asked. "Of course," Amelia said, watching her daughter skip off. She turned back to Ethan, her voice soft. "This is very kind of you. We've never been anywhere like this." He shrugged lightly. "It's just a room. You deserve to be comfortable while you wait. You did something decent today. Let's call it even." His tone was simple, but his eyes carried warmth. He set his briefcase aside and walked to the counter, returning a moment later with 2 cups of hot chocolate and a coffee. "Here," he said, handing her one of the mugs. "No strings attached." Amelia accepted it carefully, the steam warming her cold fingers. She sank into one of the chairs, exhaustion settling over her. For the first time all day, she let herself breathe. Ethan sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees. "So," he said, "you're here for the Sky North project?" She nodded. "They're testing a new uniform line. It's just a short-term contract. But if I do well, maybe it becomes something permanent." "You made the trip for a maybe?" he asked, though not unkindly. Amelia smiled faintly. "When you're raising a child on your own, maybes are the only chances you get." He nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. The sound of Zoe's laughter drifted over. She was sitting on the carpet, flipping through a picture book about birds. Ethan's eyes followed her for a moment. "She reminds me of my son," he said quietly. Amelia looked up, surprised. "You have a son?" He nodded, his expression softening. "His name is Owen. He's 9 now. He lives with my mother in Boston." He paused, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "My wife, Anna, was killed in an accident 4 years ago. It was sudden. Owen was 5 then. He doesn't like flying anymore." Amelia's heart tightened. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That must have been hard." "It still is," he admitted. "Every time I travel, I think of how much she loved airports, the noise, the energy, the sense of going somewhere new. I guess that's why I keep coming back here. It makes me feel close to her somehow." He smiled faintly, though the sadness lingered in his eyes. "That photo in the wallet. It's Owen, the day we built his first model plane together." For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt gentle, like two people resting on the edge of understanding. Amelia stared into her drink. "I thought about keeping that wallet for a moment," she confessed quietly. "I really did. The money inside could have helped us so much. But then I thought of Zoe watching me, and I couldn't." Ethan met her eyes. "Doing the right thing is easy to talk about when life's comfortable. It's people who choose it when things are hard that remind the rest of us what decency really means." Her throat tightened at his words. "I didn't think it was anything special." "It is," he said, "and it says a lot about you." Zoe returned just then, clutching a coloring book. "Look, Mommy, birds that fly in the sky." Amelia smiled. "Perfect choice." Ethan chuckled. "Seems like she's got your theme." "What theme?" "Dreaming upward," he said simply. They stayed in the lounge for another hour, talking about small things, places they'd lived, the best pancakes Zoe had ever eaten, the cities Ethan had visited for work. Amelia found herself relaxing, her guard lowering piece by piece. Ethan listened when she spoke, really listened, something she wasn't used to anymore. When Zoe began to yawn, Ethan stood. "The storm's easing up. Your flight might resume soon." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card. "If Sky North doesn't see your worth, call me. My company runs a foundation, Vale Industries. We fund design projects that make work safer and fairer for employees. I think you'd fit." Amelia blinked at the card in her hand. The embossed letters shimmered faintly. Ethan Vale, founder and CEO, Vale Industries. Her breath caught. You're that Vale?" He smiled modestly. "Last time I checked." She shook her head, half embarrassed, half stunned. "I thought you were just a guy with a lost wallet," he finished. "Sometimes that's all I want to be." He glanced at Zoe, now curled up asleep on the armchair, then back at Amelia. "Take care of her, and take care of yourself too. You're doing better than you think." As he walked away to make a call, Amelia looked down at the card again. The weight of it felt strange, both opportunity and uncertainty wrapped in one. She slipped it into her bag, right beside the envelope of her savings. One was fading paper. The other felt like a door she hadn't known existed until today. Outside the glass wall, the rain had thinned to a silver mist. The loudspeaker announced updated departures. Amelia whispered to herself, "Maybe this isn't just another delay." She reached over, brushed Zoe's hair from her face and watched the man across the room who had lost a wallet and somehow helped her find something she didn't know she'd misplaced: her sense of worth. By the time Amelia and Zoe reached the small hostel that night, the city rain had turned to a soft drizzle. Streetlights shimmered against the puddles as Amelia tucked Zoe into the narrow bed beside her. The girl fell asleep almost instantly, her small hand curled around the sleeve of her mother's coat. Amelia sat for a long while staring at the Vale Industries card on the nightstand, its clean edges catching the light. Part of her wanted to believe it meant something, that the man she'd met on that plane truly saw her potential. But another part of her whispered that people like Ethan Vale lived in a world far beyond hers. Eventually, exhaustion won. She closed her eyes to the hum of distant traffic, unaware that the next morning would test her in ways she wasn't ready for. The shrill buzz of her phone woke her at dawn. She fumbled for it, heart racing until she saw the caller ID. "Marta, tailor shop." Her boss's voice came through, curt and cold. "Amelia, I'm sorry, but the shop's closing. The owner filed for bankruptcy yesterday. There's no paycheck coming." The line went dead before Amelia could respond. She sat still, phone in her lap, the words sinking in like stones. No job. No last payment. No rent money. The small window of their hostel room glowed gray with morning light, and she whispered to herself, "All right, we'll figure it out." But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. She tried to hide her worry from Zoe as they dressed. "We'll stop by the cafe before my interview," she said brightly, forcing cheer. "Maybe they have pancakes." "With syrup?" Zoe asked hopefully. "With syrup," Amelia promised. But by the time they reached the terminal where the interviews were being held, the skies had darkened again. Her phone buzzed once more. This time a message from the landlord reminding her that rent was already 2 weeks overdue. She slipped the phone into her bag, heart pounding. Inside the conference room, candidates filled every chair, most of them younger, polished, and confident. Amelia adjusted the collar of her thrifted blouse, acutely aware of the coffee stain near the seam. She clutched her small portfolio of sketches, trying to quiet the voice that kept saying she didn't belong. When her name was finally called, she took a deep breath and walked forward. The interview lasted less than 10 minutes. The panel smiled politely but distractedly. One of them mentioned that they were moving in a different direction before she'd even finished showing her designs. By the time Amelia stepped back into the hallway, the rejection had already settled in her chest like cold air. She wanted to cry but didn't. She just kept walking until she found herself outside under the overhang, rain beginning to fall again. "Mommy?" Zoe's small voice came from beside her. "Did they like your pictures?" Amelia forced a smile and crouched down. "They were very kind, sweetheart. We'll find another chance." Zoe nodded solemnly, trusting as always. At that moment, Amelia's phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Hart?" The voice was warm and familiar. "It's Ethan. I heard about the Sky North interviews. How did it go?" Amelia turned away from the crowd to hide the crack in her voice. "It didn't. They already filled the positions." There was a pause, then his voice softened. "Where are you now?" "At the terminal," she said quietly, "trying to figure out our next step." "I'm nearby," he replied. "Stay there, please." She wanted to protest, but before she could, the line clicked off. 10 minutes later, Ethan appeared, rain beating on his coat. "You didn't have to come," she said as he approached. "I did," he answered simply. "You helped me when I was lost. Now it's my turn." Just then, Zoe swayed slightly, her face pale. Amelia dropped to her knees. "Honey, what's wrong?" Zoe's lips were dry, her forehead hot. "I don't feel good," she murmured. Panic surged through Amelia. Ethan immediately waved over a nearby security officer. "There's a medical desk by gate 12, he said. "Let's get her there." Together, they carried Zoe down the corridor. Amelia's breath came in shallow bursts, but Ethan's calm presence steadied her. At the clinic, the nurse took Zoe's temperature, 104. "She's dehydrated," the nurse said. "We'll give her fluids." Amelia gripped her daughter's hand, fighting tears. Ethan stood a few steps behind, speaking quietly to the staff. When she looked up, she realized he was paying the bill. "Ethan, no," she protested, standing quickly. "Please don't do that." He turned toward her, voice firm but kind. "It's already done. You don't owe me anything." "I can't accept charity," she said, heat rising in her face. "This isn't charity," he replied. "It's gratitude, and maybe something else. Faith in what you can do." She opened her mouth, but the words tangled in her throat. The nurse returned with a cool cloth, and Amelia pressed it to Zoe's forehead. "Thank you," she whispered without looking up. Ethan nodded. "When she's feeling better, send me your portfolio," he said gently. Vale Industries is starting a design project, something called Skykind. We're looking for someone who understands compassion through work. That's you. The words hung between them like a fragile thread of hope. Zoe stirred weakly, squeezing her mother's hand. "Mommy?" "I'm here, sweetheart." Amelia smiled through her tears. Ethan picked up his umbrella and gave a faint smile. "I'll check on you later," he said, before stepping into the rain. Amelia watched him go. The world outside a blur of silver and motion. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. She pressed a hand to Zoe's hair and whispered, "We're going to be okay." The following week unfolded like a blur of small miracles. Zoe's fever broke within 2 days, and though Amelia still couldn't afford to stay another night in the hostel, the nurse at the airport clinic quietly connected her to a local community shelter that housed single parents in transition. It wasn't fancy, just clean bunk beds and a shared kitchen, but it was warm and safe. Every night, Amelia sat by the window, sewing small alterations for other residents to earn a few extra dollars, while Zoe colored beside her. Sometimes Amelia caught herself touching the Vale Industries card in her pocket, still unsure whether to believe in what Ethan had said. People didn't usually mean things like that. Not in her world. On the third morning, an email appeared on her cracked phone screen. The subject line read, "Skykind, interview invitation." Her heart skipped. She opened it twice just to be sure she wasn't dreaming. The message was from Vale Industries' HR department, inviting her to a design trial at their Seattle office the next day. The words "recommended by Mr. Ethan Vale" glowed on the screen like a secret blessing. The next morning, Amelia borrowed an iron from the shelter supervisor and pressed her best blouse, careful to hide the small tear near the seam. She woke Zoe early, braiding her hair neatly and promising they'd celebrate after. The Vale Industries headquarters towered above the downtown skyline, glass walls gleaming under a clear sky. Amelia stood on the sidewalk with Zoe's small hand in hers, feeling as though she was about to step into another universe. At reception, a kind woman greeted her and handed Zoe a packet of crayons and paper. "You can draw right here while your mom's in her meeting, okay?" Zoe nodded solemnly, already choosing a blue crayon. Amelia's knees trembled as she followed the woman down a long hallway lined with framed photos. Factory workers, seamstresses, smiling designers. They didn't look like executives. They looked like real people. Inside the small design room, 3 judges sat at a table, among them a woman with silver glasses who introduced herself as head of product design. "We're testing concepts for Skykind, a sustainable uniform project," she explained. "You'll have 90 minutes to sketch and explain your ideas." Amelia took a seat, her hands clammy, her pencil hovering over the blank sheet. Around her, other candidates, confident, professional, had already begun sketching bold designs. For a moment she froze. What was she doing here? She was just a seamstress from a shop that no longer existed. Then she remembered Zoe's words the night before, when she tucked her into bed. "Mommy, you always make people's clothes fit better. Maybe today you can make the sky fit people too." The innocence in that sentence had made her laugh then, but now it steadied her. Amelia began to draw, soft lines flowing into curves, gentle silhouettes inspired by motion and comfort. Her concept was simple: uniforms designed not just for appearance but for humanity, made from recycled fabrics with flexible seams that allowed movement and dignity. In the center of her sketch, she drew a small silver emblem shaped like a bird mid-flight. When the time was up, she stood and presented her idea. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steadier as she spoke about compassion through design, about how clothes could protect, not just adorn. The judges listened silently, exchanging glances. When she finished, one of them smiled. "Thank you, Ms. Hart. That was beautifully said." That afternoon, she sat with Zoe in the building's lobby, waiting for the results. Zoe had fallen asleep on her lap when she heard her name called. She looked up to see Ethan standing beside the HR director. He wasn't in a suit this time, just a navy sweater and that calm, observant expression she remembered. "You did it," he said quietly. "The panel loved your design. You're being offered a 3-month trial contract with the Skykind program." Amelia blinked, unable to speak. "Are you sure?" Ethan smiled. "I've rarely been more sure about anything." The HR director handed her a folder. "We'll finalize paperwork this week. Welcome to Vale Industries, Ms. Hart." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she nodded, whispering thank you over and over. Zoe stirred awake, confused. "Mommy, what happened?" Amelia laughed through tears. "Something good, sweetheart. Something really good." A week later, she sat in a bright studio surrounded by bolts of fabric and sunlight. Her new ID badge gleamed on the table beside her sketchbook. Ethan stopped by one afternoon, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look different," he said, handing her one. "Maybe because I finally feel seen," she replied. He nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes all it takes is one act of honesty for the world to open a door." They stood by the window overlooking the city. Down below, workers loaded boxes labeled Skykind. Amelia smiled softly. "That silver bird I drew, it's supposed to mean hope." "It does," Ethan said. "And for what it's worth, you remind me of it." When he left, Amelia glanced at her reflection in the glass. Tired, yes, but no longer small. She turned to see Zoe at the drawing table in the corner, coloring a sky filled with birds. Amelia whispered, "We're flying now, baby." "We really are." 1 month later, Seattle's skyline glimmered beneath the gentle haze of an early spring morning. Amelia walked through the polished glass doors of Vale Industries with her sketchbook tucked under one arm, and Zoe's latest drawing folded carefully in her pocket. Her life had changed in small, steady steps. Nothing grand, nothing sudden. She still woke early to pack Zoe's lunch, still caught the bus every morning, still mended old clothes at night for neighbors at the shelter. But there was a lightness in her now, a quiet pride she carried with every stitch she made. She was no longer surviving, she was building. That afternoon, Vale Industries hosted its first public presentation for the Skykind project. The design studio buzzed with energy as fabric samples, prototypes, and presentation boards lined the long tables. Amelia stood near the display showing her design, a simple, modern uniform adorned with a small silver bird emblem on the chest. "You ready?" Ethan's voice came from behind her. He was dressed casually again, sleeves rolled up, a faint smile softening his features. Amelia turned, nerves fluttering. "Not really," she admitted. "I've never spoken in front of a crowd before." "Then just pretend you're telling Zoe a bedtime story," he said. "You're good at those." His encouragement steadied her. When her turn came, she stepped up to the microphone. Her hands trembled as she began, but her voice found its rhythm, describing how Skykind was about more than clothes. It was about kindness, dignity, and second chances. She spoke about the seamstresses who made them, the recycled materials that built them, and how compassion could be sewn into the smallest thread. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before applause filled the air. Ethan caught her eye and gave a small, approving nod. After the presentation, employees and guests mingled around the display tables. Zoe, dressed in her favorite yellow dress, ran up and threw her arms around her mother's waist. "You did it, Mommy!" she beamed. Amelia laughed and crouched to hug her. "We did it, sweetheart." A few reporters were snapping photos, and one of them turned to Ethan. "Mr. Vale, may we get a quote for the article?" Ethan looked toward Amelia before replying. "This project isn't about me," he said. "It's about people like her. People who remind us that integrity and courage still matter. She found something I lost long ago. Faith in others." His voice softened. "She returned my wallet once. What she really gave me back was trust." Amelia felt her eyes sting. She hadn't known he'd remember that moment so clearly. As the event drew to a close, the last of the guests drifted out, leaving the studio quiet again. The sunlight poured through the high windows, painting everything gold. Ethan walked over to her, holding a small velvet box. "I wanted to give you something," he said. "A token, not payment." He opened it to reveal a delicate silver wallet charm shaped like a wing, sleek, simple, and beautiful. Amelia smiled in surprise. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said softly, "but I wanted to. When I lost my wallet that day, I thought I'd lost faith in people. You proved me wrong. This is to remind you that what you gave me was worth far more than anything I lost." She traced the wing with her fingertip, its surface cool and smooth. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "So was your choice, Jamal," he replied. For a moment, their eyes met, steady, unspoken understanding passing between them. Then Zoe tugged at Ethan's sleeve. "Did you see the birds, Mr. Vale? Outside. They're flying over the water." He laughed softly. "Then let's go see." Together they stepped out onto the rooftop terrace, where the harbor stretched beyond the city. The air was crisp, the water below shimmering like glass. A flock of gulls circled above, their wings catching the afternoon light. Zoe pointed upward, jumping with delight. "They look like silver, Mommy!" Amelia knelt beside her daughter, smiling as the wind brushed her hair. "They do, baby, just like our bird." Ethan leaned against the railing beside them, watching the sunlight glint off the building's mirrored surface. "You know," he said, "I've seen a lot of designs, but this one, Sky Kind, it feels alive. It's not just about uniforms. It's about people who start over." Amelia turned to him, her smile quiet and sure. Starting over is just another way of saying, we decided to keep going. As the sun began to dip, painting the sky in soft pink and gold, Zoe stretched out her arms, pretending to fly. Amelia laughed, her heart full. Ethan handed her the velvet box again, now closed. "Keep it," he said. "And if you ever forget how far you've come, open it." She nodded, tucking it safely into her bag. Later that night, back in their small apartment, one she could finally afford on her own, Amelia set the silver wing on the shelf above her sewing machine. Beside it stood Zoe's crayon drawing of the sky filled with bright, open birds. She touched both gently and whispered, "We made it." Her phone buzzed with a new message from Ethan. "Thank you for returning more than a wallet. You gave me back my heart. E." Amelia smiled through tears, glancing at Zoe asleep under her blanket. Outside, the city lights shimmered like stars, and for the first time in years, she felt truly at home. She looked again at the silver wing resting on the shelf, the tiny emblem of everything that had changed. The weight of struggle, fear, and loneliness had turned into something lighter, something she could finally carry with pride. She whispered softly, "Sometimes doing what's right opens the door to everything we've been waiting for." And as she turned off the lamp, the faint reflection of the silver wing caught the glow of the city below, shining like a quiet reminder that kindness always finds its way back. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Midus Stories. Because sometimes the smallest act of honesty can change not just one life, but two.